The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
Hey everybody! Welcome to first a chilling little vignette, and also World of Warcraft 65. We're going to be talking about the implications of blockchain to recorded history, which is entirely germane to that last bit. I'm excited about the topic. Everybody here's got a lot to say on it, so with that we can just jump into the intro stuff. So. Like I said, episode 65, you guys have been with us for some time now. Glad to have everybody who's here and looking forward to meeting some new folks and welcome to our little community. Hosted for today are Joe, founder and architect of Dragon Chain. Hey, Joe. Lisa Mighty Davis, a.k.a. Litecoin Lisa, a.k.a. One of the nicest people I know and sharpest social entrepreneurs I've ever encountered.
Thank
you. Satoshi Sean, entrepreneur and everyone's friend, and also pretty funny finder of memes. And we've got Distant back from his trip. That's
Hello
Dave from Den.social.
I am back.
So, and of course, I'm Greg, your master of ceremonies today, and CXO and founder of Rivet. So, quick update from World Blockchain Roundtable Lair ownership tokens distribution from last week's episode. For this week, each host will receive 166 lot. Each topic contributor will receive 33. And last week's theme on politics and blockchain was nominated by Elon Tusk. Great name, by the way. I've always liked it. He will receive 33 lot for that. And these ownership tokens, as always, come with perpetual passive income, free edits, governance votes, and a whole slew of things yet to be invented, which is neat because the governance votes allow you to have a say in that. So got a couple World Blockchain Roundtable DAO issues coming up. We need some community participation on. So guys, suggest those themes for September. Those are due next Monday, UTC 1600 in the World Blockchain Roundtable player. So go in there and get your votes in. Okay, so I think that's it. Unless there's anything I'm missing. We'll have a link to this in the show notes. I'm assuming. Cool.
Yes, I believe so. Right. Yeah.
All right.
If not,
so
the
theme of
Den
this
Social,
week,
it'll be in there.
But is history. But there's a lot of current stuff going on too. So let's jump into current events.
Oh yeah, let's. I've been catching up since I got back. I was out for the last basically 2 weeks. So it's been busy.
Like so much.
Yeah,
I feel like the whole world went down in a handbasket when you were gone, man.
He messaged me on Twitter. Dave messaged me on Twitter. It's like, hey man, I've been basically out of the loop from everything for 2 weeks. Maybe we could do like a show where you could catch me up on the past 2 weeks. I was like, I wanted to do it, man. I really did. I was talking to Lisa on Tuesday that I wanted to do it on Monday, but everything.
Yeah, I felt like it would have been
long.
Because then I could have just been like, wait, what?
Who would support a proposal right now to change the show's title to Clown World Blockchain Roundtable?
It's weird. Everything happened when I got back. I was in Iceland. If you didn't know, I was just touring the whole country, going around seeing ice cubes and rocks. And when I got home, everything's broken. Like my lawnmower's broken, my pool pump was broken. The internet. Yesterday, I did the first coffee show. In the beginning, it just and it was like Gainesville's internet went out for a minute because my co-host was also in Gainesville, and both of our internets like went out at the beginning of the show, and then yeah.
Yep.
It's just everything collapsed.
And there's also an exciting new development from the Treasury Department where they've decided to administratively say that not only is code speech, but code is now apparently a person too, because OFAC sanctioned Tornado Cash, the smart contract.
I did catch.
It'd be interesting to see if it has the ability to appeal that, like if it can become self-aware, and then petition to remove it from the list.
Well, there was a river that they just made a person. Was that in Canada? There was to protect a river, they made it a person so that the Indian nation could be then, I don't know. There's a trend with this.
Oh, the Indian tribe made it a person or something.
Do you think it's the same guy? Like the guy who came up with the pizza is a vegetable thing is also the same person that's like the smart contract is a person and this river is a person and I am a horse,
this is interesting, actually, because
there's like legal precedent in the Star Trek.
I was going to say, you know that they also say that we are corporations. There's a whole mindset of that. So is this the undoing of that?
I think that
spirit,
people are corporations and corporations are people.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was always kind of an uncontroversial statement, right? Like the idea of a corporation was that you created a body. Even the root of the word is corp, right? That's like the same Latin root for corpse. Right. There is a body that you are creating upon which you will place this organizational head. It's a fake person, but it's a fake person that the state allows you to make. The question is, do we really need to bother with the state allows you to make part anymore now that we have technology that can do that better?
That's what I'm interested in. Is there's so many things that like I have family members that are super into communism and like stuff like that, and they're trying to tell me about all of these communism things, and I'm like, I don't know, man, but I tell you what, it's failed, and it's failed horribly over and over again throughout history. But maybe some aspects of it we can Dowify it or something to make it, I don't know. Maybe there's something we can do because there's such a huge push for like repeating history.
For me, as long as there's
it's not going to happen the same way.
As long as somebody wants to set up their communism over here in this other place and have a DAO that you're allowed to sell your tokens from, or I guess, gift them to to the people who have the greatest need when you leave or whatever.
It only works with a benevolent leader. Yeah.
Right. Like,
well, I mean, I was against it like entirely, and I still guess I am. But like my thing is, if that's the way it's going to go,
if it's too big, you're going to die.
If it's going to go there anyway, can we apply tech to make it at least?
The problem is, can we exist
better,
in parallel, right? Like, do they care if we're over here doing a libertarian thing? And I think the answer is yes.
They're not going. That's what needs to happen with DAOs. That you could effectively virtually join any jurisdiction. Say, you know what? Yes, I'm physically here, so maybe there's some physical responsibility with infrastructure, sure, and I can move, right? But I don't believe in this system with our currency and everything else. I'm going to sign into this. We're going to have Monero, and we're going to do this, and we're going to,
right. Road has too many potholes. I prefer the street token project.
I was thinking this week how weird birth certificates are, because I've been watching over on HBO, The Anarchists. It's a good show, man. But when I didn't know it was there, I didn't know it was a thing. Just came out, and then I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, it's Berwick. What's this about?" And then I started watching the show. It's like, "Oh my god, I bet I'm going to be on this freaking show." And I keep waiting for.
I watched it because I went to Anarchapulco in 2019. Yeah. I was like, "Am I going to be on?"
I keep waiting for like an interview I did, or me saying, because there's all these YouTubers that they keep bringing, showing from stuff in the past, and but the guy,
they aren't going to show anyone who's not controlled.
He had a kid, and they were talking about he didn't have a birth certificate. I don't think we're going to do that. But it's just weird that you're not alive, and then you ask the state to like give you proof of your birth, and then once they certify that you've been born, you're like a real person. But
But
She's
you're
like not a real
actually
person until that. It's so
not.
weird.
Right.
The concept.
then that puts you into
Right.
maritime law, which we can go. That goes to the whole
Is any of
That's
that
too
true?
fun.
What the heck is
It-
all that stuff?
look into a 1099A.
Yeah, you can actually use maritime law to create arbitrary governmental spaces that the international community has to recognize by precedent.
There were a
It's why
couple
when
of,
you you go into a courtroom, you can't speak to the judge if you have an attorney with you, because
Right.
you have admitted that you're like not a human, or you're not worthy. I don't know. Your representation can speak to the judge, but you don't. You're like,
Right.
you know what I thought was
And
interesting
even
is
if
Sign
you
yourself
guarantee
away.
procedural due process, the highest authority on a ship in international waters is the captain. So,
there's a lot of stuff that I don't know if it's true or not, which is part of the reason I was excited about this episode today. And what I thought was interesting this year in Miami, I went down to, one of the conferences I went to was Monerotopia. And there were a couple of lawyers set up, had a booth up there, and they
I
were,
was there.
yeah, that's right. I wasn't there the whole time, or we didn't.
I was
meet up.
only there
Yeah.
at the end when I was trying to get Reggie in.
But they
wouldn't
were,
let him speak.
and I got their card because I was interested. I didn't know like how much was bullshit and how much was, whatever. But they had a very good explanation about how they were helping people minimize their, what did they call it? Minimize their tax liability or something like that. But basically,
for international travel, like the
Well,
I think I heard the same episode.
It was basically like getting rid of your federal passport and getting a state passport instead, and then you have state taxes but not federal taxes. But then if you live in Florida or Texas or something and you don't have state income tax, then you're tax free. And I was like, really? Can you just do that? And he was like, yeah, you can just do that. It's a thing. So I don't know. I didn't look more into it, but I talked to him a little bit about it. And there's a lot of stuff I read about, and with maritime law. I don't know how much of that, is like, I'm not a lawyer, and there's a lot of laws out there that I don't know.
I'll send
There's
you
a
link.
core of validity to all of that is really fascinating, actually. If you wanted to, and could, like if you could find a place that you could set up some kind of indisputably from a purely logical closed loop standpoint nation that would have to be recognized if you wanted to consider like a shipping registration, for example. Like imagine you've got a shipping container ship and you want to take your goods to some place where you've got to take it through customs, and so they need to know the port of harbor of the ship. And you write down Davetopia, my nation that I set up on this teeny tiny platform island that I bought that's in the middle of the Pacific somewhere. I've never been there.
Dave.
I'm in exile, but this ship is where our country is essentially domiciled. We fly the flag of our home country and operate under its law.
Why doesn't Dragon Chain do that?
So I'm the captain, so maritime law says you have to honor this.
Why don't we do
Is
that as a
Greg, what's
crypto
that,
project, or maybe the round table? Why doesn't the round table just say, let's
Greg,
try
what's
it?
that place? It's it's off the shore of England. It's these
Sealand.
these metal structures that were made.
You're talking
in World
about
War II.
Sealand.
Sealand.
They repatriated it.
Or Sealandia or whatever. Yeah, that.
I'm a Duke in exile, actually.
You are?
Yeah, I wanted to do that. I never done it. Hey,
Didn't Disney
here's
do
something.
that too? Though, and Florida just
Yeah,
took
they just
their
lost it.
permissions away.
Dropping
though.
some
Yeah.
stuff there.
You
Good to
know,
see
so
you.
if they
Can I say
want to
something?
fucking come and have
Here.
it, man.
See your
Individual
cards. Good to see you here.
sovereignty.
Huddle Signal sent me a lot of good memes for this week's meme review. But if you guys are interested in this, what we're going over, or if you guys on the panel are interested in this, like maritime stuff, you should check out Rice Crypto or Rice TVX. He has done so much stuff on this to where, and it's crazy, the stuff that he's researched and done on this. Stuff with the, he shows all the research, but like the post office, like when you look at the role of the post office and the power that it has, it's kind of insane.
The postal inspectors were the first U.S. Marshals, man, and they have jurisdiction within like 300 yards of every mailbox, which is everywhere.
Wow. No, I brought this up because I wanted to bring. This is an interesting thing when you step back and you think about history and reality and truth. That I don't know how old any of you are, but how many of you grew up just kind of wondering what would it be like living in Soviet Russia or in Castro's Cuba, right? And here is literally what we are, what it was. Like, oh, you can't say certain things. Here,
We're living
you
in
can't
it.
say certain
How
things.
old am I?
Right.
In Soviet Russia,
You used to,
dreams think of you.
Yakov Smirnoff. Oh no.
That's part of the drive. I hate to say it, but even more so than
Y'all leveled up in
so my
old.
wife is German and she speaks English, so we can talk just fine. My German is terrible, but her mom doesn't speak much English, and so one of the reasons I really want to learn the language is to talk to her mom, because
You shouldn't call
they
your
grew
wife
up
terrible.
in
That's
East
mean,
Germany,
man.
and her mom's a teacher and had a whole career teaching in that environment. So it's such an interesting thing to learn about every time.
I've learned a little bit of
go
Russian. It's
back
a
to her
beautiful
home.
language, honestly.
You
I
know-
probably mangle it because I learn it from trying to sing along with Russian songs. But
If you watch old movies that are like Cold War movies, it's saddening how much our country is like, the stuff they were fleeing. Like watch Crimson, what is it? Crimson Tide? No, not Crimson Tide. That's the Denzel Washington.
Red Dawn.
Right, October.
Red October. Yeah, with Baldwin and Connery. And Sam Neill, and they're talking about, he's like, I would go to live in the Montana. I think I would like to have a sport or recreation vehicle, and he's like, I would like to drive and see, and he's like, you could. And Connor's like, you could do that,
right.
He's like,
Well,
no
now for the
papers?
first time,
No papers.
Americans are fleeing Mexico.
I don't know if you remember a couple months ago, they were literally talking about like you'd have to have a state passport and be able to go through different states, and like, Texas is pissed at New York, and it was this whole big just political bullshit drama.
People were being stopped at restaurants not too long ago. And
Yeah,
being
they were
asked
looking for like for your
Has anybody
license.
here read Atlas Shrugged? Raise your hand if you'll admit it.
I have it right there.
Ayn Rand, her life story is literally about the escape from Bolshevik Russia after the revolution.
Pharmacists, I think.
She was
right?
she was a
I've only
pharmacist's
ever read
daughter.
excerpts.
Her dad was a
She
pharmacist.
came here because she got a travel visa that she just overstayed and sought asylum, and didn't speak a lick of English before those books and screenplays were written. Like, she came here not knowing a word of it. And basically wrote all of the things that she wrote to warn people about it. I mean, this is a person's lived experience. Yeah, it's one person. You can quibble about that, but you can't quibble about the fact that this person went through a lot of shit to escape it, including leaving behind their family.
Orwell was a
That's not something
communist,
easy.
and I don't know his whole arc, but it was similar. It wasn't similar in where he was or anything, but I think he saw it up front too.
But on the optimistic note, right? This is the United States, and even though we're not fucking perfect yet, we're stubborn as fuck. So we make up for what we lack in the perfection of the systems by refusing to go along with it, dug in like ticks if we have to, while we try to get it right. We don't always get there, and we aren't in like, you can't apologize for this situation, right? There still has to be action in order to take us out of it, but we're still us. We're not Australia. We're not New Zealand. We're not just going to roll over on our backs and say, govern me harder, daddy.
Something else that related to that I was catching up on whenever I returned was, and this started, I discovered this before I left, and I had a lot of time to think about it while I was gone. Being isolated in 67 degrees north without a lot of infrastructure or connectivity gives you a lot to think about. And I was thinking about how there was a leaked slide from I don't know if it was an FBI training thing or whatever, but it was talking about all of the domestic terrorists and what their symbols are and stuff like that. And a lot of those were things that we would officially fly on the forecastle of my ship when I was in the Navy. You know what I mean? And it's like
the Betsy Ross flag.
I think it's
been
proud.
swearing presidents since
in the
time
U.S.,
immemorial.
it's proud parent of an honor student at whatever elementary school. That's what they
and
just
there's
said as a domestic.
Yeah, the
terrorist.
FBI put that list out, Dave, and things that were on the list for.
Yeah,
I don't know how we get away with what we get away with in this channel.
Well, the FBI's
There's so many
improved
words
if
we
we're going
can't
to
say
completely
that,
frank
and
about
any
it.
other channel that we say here, but the domestic, rarest, and on that list, and they were literally
tourism.
talking about the Second Amendment or reciting the Constitution. Those are on that list,
right? And it was so bizarre to me that because obviously every group has like a little fringe cell that's crazy. Fine, okay, but you can't paint the entire. Like, this is literally, you're talking about veterans. You're talking about, like, why isn't the POW flag on there? Basically, you know what I mean? It's like everybody who gives a shit is on that list. And it's baffling to me. And it's a little bit infuriating because I spent 9.5 years active duty. And I thought that I knew what I was like trying to, just do what they say to do because it helps protect the things that you love and cherish and stand for. Right. And then here I am, like, looking back on like, what okay, I guess all of that's out the window now, and all of that is enemy territory now.
Dovetailed story, Dave, because I think this is really important.
I've been thinking about this like the past few days. I watched this video of a veteran, and he set his uniform on fire, and he told his story, and he was just going off on me, on you, and he's like, America. I hate you. I'm so pissed. So he did like 12 years. He was in Iraq. He came back, and then he lived out in the country. And this woman came on his property, and he's like, "Get off my property." She's like, "No." So anyway, argues with her, tells her to get off, and she calls the police. The police come out, and she said, "Yeah, he was threatening me with a knife," and she even admitted, "I trespassed." He went to court. In front of the judge, the woman admitted she was trespassing on his land, and then he said, "I didn't do any of that." And they said, "Oh, you're a former veteran. You have PTSD. 150 days in jail."
Jesus.
What?
And he said so. He basically now said, he talks about how the United States is like, I
debilitating mental illness.
I went through this, and you stabbed me in the back. And now he said, if you go to the VA, or if you go to a doctor, or if you admit you have PTSD, that's it. You're labeled a certain thing. And then there was this cop that was talking about it.
Yeah.
He said it's absolutely true. If you admit that you have PTSD or you have any history of that, it's just like being a wife beater or domestic violence. It's the same thing.
Dude, no, it's just like, you guys remember during the drowning epidemic, when all those people who were nowhere near water were all of a sudden drowning, and you had to wear a life vest everywhere, even if it didn't make sense?
No, I don't remember that at all.
No,
yes,
you don't remember the life vest?
You say
exactly what you're talking about.
Hey, if you're a veteran, you don't admit you have PTSD.
You guys don't remember that?
My life vest makes you safe.
I will say that the VA has denied treatment to me because of things that I said, which I thought was so stupid.
They even tried to get people to wear 3 life vests at one point.
Yes.
Every time I go to the doctor, every time they make me fill out this this form about how do you feel? Do you want to hurt yourself? Do you think you're worthless? Do you think the world's better? I mean, just all this psychological stuff.
But that's where then people are self-medicating, because it's less shameful to be a drug addict in our country than to admit that you have mental illness.
That's the scam. That's the scam. I think you fell for it.
The problem
that
is
used to be that used to be this scam. It's like, hey, it's not shameful, but they wanted you to admit that,
very succinctly
so that now they can use that against you, and it is used against you. There's what's called the Medical Information Bureau, which used to be like a central database, like your credit score, but for all your medical information. And it was guarded like it was so hard to get.
They created a central repository, and they posted men with guns around it and promised they wouldn't let anybody in that didn't.
If you're an insurance company,
and they passed laws that said
or
you
a
belong
doctor,
there,
you had access to the Medical Information Bureau, the MIB, but it was really, really strict. Like, you had to sign off on a bunch of stuff for someone to give access to it. And I think with all the data breaches and how our data has just been, we've been desensitized.
This is the same problem as crypto backdoors, right?
Yeah, but do you know about the lawsuits with CVS and Walgreens and all this that just went down? $650 million they're having to pay out for the opioid addiction and not monitoring people and all that. Like, things are turning around.
And frankly though, let's be completely fair and say, okay, where is in fact the United States government? Where's Dick Cheney's share of that? Because the opium to make those things came from the place where we intentionally
Poppy
propped up
bush.
opium dealing.
It's already been admitted too. So
Opium farming, like 95% of the world's opium supply is from Afghanistan.
and protected by
And
was protected by us.
that until we went in.
Absolutely.
We set that up. We paid them off. We governed that way there.
Yeah, I heard about that. I never protected any opium fields, but I did protect a lot of oil platforms in the Persian Gulf.
Right.
You know,
And then the people coming back, of course, are the people who they're now saying have painkiller addiction problems,
Right.
and they're going to go ahead and crack down on it. Like we got a drug war now to take care of all of the people who now have such bad problems with mental illness coming back from the war that they have no other choice but to take pain pills to numb the pain. And where they go when those are no longer prescribed, the shit that is getting imported from the place that we destabilized with it. It's a gigantic fucking circle of fuckery.
What I don't get is like, what do they, whoever they are, or whatever, what do they want us to do? Like, are we supposed to go away and move out of the country? Are we supposed to like sit down and shut up? But what if you can't sit down and shut up? What if you're not able to do that?
Talks about a fight that's coming, a war, whatever. I think the last 10, 15, 20 years even has been the gathering of intel. That's why I have to, and I've had bad
20 years ago.
When I have to go to the doctor and I have to answer that questionnaire, it's like, well, yeah, the world would probably be better off without me, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's like, have you been sleeping? Have you been not sleeping? I think all of this is to gather information, as much intel as possible for when a red flag law goes up. That it's all there. It's all ready to go, for them to come in and say, hey man, 6 months ago, you said that you wanted to maybe kill yourself or hurt yourself or hurt someone else. And because you were reaching out for help, that's all they needed. They have that now. That's why our information is so important. And literally I think you have to send the message. Don't reach out for help. I mean, yeah, you might.
Well, no, actually, we can't say that. We cannot say that.
Why not?
Everybody should get help if they need it.
Because there's a huge issue with
that vet and what he went
suicide.
through. He went to jail because he reached out for help.
I'd rather him be in jail.
Suicide is
dead.
a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
12 or 24 vets kill themselves every day.
We shouldn't start.
22.
That is why, and that's why. And nobody cares. Nothing.
I see that as, although it's plausible, I see that as like a hypothetical, and I would never tell somebody to like alter their life because of a hypothetical. And that's related to what today's topic is a little bit. Is like
suicide is never the answer, honestly. Like if you're feeling like doing that, you need to go get help.
It's not hypothetical to that guy.
Like somebody
who reached out and said, "Yeah, I have PTSD," and that was
I don't know his story.
But he really didn't do anything wrong. But it's automatically, it's literally the same as having a history of domestic violence. Oh, you're one of those.
What that does match up with, in my experience, though, is we had a big problem in the Navy. Again, we had a big problem with people who had. I worked under a SCI clearance when I was in, and people that had my category of security clearance were often some of the most disturbed motherfuckers that I met, because they just wouldn't go find health therapists because they were afraid of getting their clearance taken away and losing their job.
Right.
And so it's similar in concept to that, I guess. There was this known danger of if you're having a hard time and you just want to talk to somebody, the worst thing you could do is go talk to a doctor in the military, because you might lose your security clearance and lose your job. And they would tell you, "Oh no, that won't happen."
I understand
but it happened all the time.
I am where I am. They do need help, but it's so hard for me now. I have friends that have PTSD. I have friends like 3 support animals. I mean, but for me to tell them, or anyone now, it's like, hey man, you should reach out to the VA, or you should go through these channels for help. Knowing that, man, you could be screwed here in the end. That could work. They could use that against you. It's hard for me.
Sean, that's not what we're saying though. Like, we're saying get help from somebody. Like, if everybody that's listening right now,
I'm saying that too.
Turned to the person to their left and said, "You can come to me and I will help you." And that help will include me being cognizant of the fact that we don't want to create a record if avoidable.
Well, maybe the question really is how do you fix that? Instead of saying don't don't get help, why don't we, I think the question is how can we maybe apply technology to fix that kind of thing?
Or you might trust to ask for help before.
A lot of people won't believe that that's true, I guess is what I'm getting at. A lot of people won't believe that those things happened in that order because of those things, right? And so maybe part of what we could do with proving things with blockchain is to prove to people that, like, no, these things happened in this order because of, here's your cause and effect, and you can prove it. It's not just an old wives' tale or hearsay that maybe you'll get punished for seeking help. If you point it out and more people are aware of what the reality actually is, maybe there'll be more of an effort to fix it and to do something about it. Whereas if there's not provability, people can dismiss it and say, oh, well, that's just some crazy people talking.
Yeah. Well, bottom line, though, and I think this is a really good place to segue into history because we're going to talk about it. But bottom line, anybody who wants, and I think this is probably true for all of us, but I'm going to say this for myself, anybody who wants or feels like they need help, but they're afraid of being tracked or databased or tagged or chipped or whatever the fuck, reach out to any of us. Me in particular. I'll do my damnedest to help you, and I will do my damnedest to make sure that nobody knows that I'm helping you or that you need help if that's a problem for you.
Right. And there's organizations like, we just had the Team Mighty event, and that money is all going to Warriors for Freedom. And that's specifically what they do, is they build community with other veterans to prevent suicide.
Yeah.
So there are ways. You don't have to go to the VA. You can work with other vets.
Exactly.
And build some community and have support that way.
I think community doctors that really don't message, follow the rules about recording.
That goes along with everything kind of we've always talked about. Lisa just really hit the nail on the head, is that to literally walk away from the institution that has been corrupted and is now being used as a weapon against those people, and to create communities, to create
Sean, look in the private chat
mental health
at
the
link that I put up.
That will protect you and will help you, and not just be used to weaponize. Also, I think it's become like bad cops, bad judges. It's the same thing. Oh, PTSD? Yeah, he's guilty. Of course he is. I don't see that as any different than, oh, he's black. Yeah, definitely, he's guilty.
It's similar.
It's the same thing. It's this.
It's a status effect in the Planet Earth RPG that we're all playing, right? Like, we should probably not try to solve that by putting you up against a tougher boss that is also going to haunt you the rest of the game, right? Like, we're going to draw an analogy. We're building a shitty RPG right now, and that's a lot of what history can help us do better about, because we can't iterate on change and know the things that we're doing are making an improvement or making things worse if we don't have an understanding of it. And I think this is something that technologically literally wasn't possible until blockchains. So we're in an interesting position right now to not just spot these problems and go, oh my God, what do we do? Or just like, how do I help my friends and family in my nearest sphere? And we can actually look at this and go, how do we fucking fix this for good? And I think that's a thing that we'll see recurring as a theme in the subtext of all the things we're going to be talking about today. I would just guess. I don't really know. I haven't looked at the questions yet.
Yeah, and especially if you don't have a solution for something, put it on the ledger so that what you're thinking about is provable later, so that somebody else who might be able to use that data can think of a solution.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Ledger everything, all the things.
And if you can't ledger it, poke somebody else and have them ledger it.
And by the way,
start recording.
I mean, speaking of ledgering, it's an interesting thing, because I was thinking about it this morning that in a way, that's kind of what DIN is there for. We need to, in fact, get the proofs report in there, but the fact that everything's on chain is just the simplest way to say, you know what, I'm going to post something anonymously or not that needs to be recorded, right? And there's
right.
Nothing to it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. It'd help with stuff like if you need to deal with the social media regulation commission or whatever, because we've got this regulatory branch that nobody knew about since like the 1930s that is dedicated to regulating social media through financial enforcement mechanisms.
Really?
News to me.
What did you do?
So they went after library first.
Oh.
Yeah, something to look into. You guys might want to have some denizens check it out.
That's interesting.
Oh, Speaking of, I'll plug in real quick. We just got a new, speaking of layers and communities and everything that you say is on chain, and it is all proven to Bitcoin so that you can make sure that what was said, when it was said and how it was said is still valid and true, and it wasn't Photoshopped later. We just got a new conspiracy theories layer this month. It's not open yet, maybe Monday or Tuesday, but it won. So we have, because this is the one that I've been interested in a lot, was because there's so many conspiracy theories out there, and I love them. I love reading about them, because, especially the plausible ones, because it makes you think, well, maybe someone's right. Someone unexpected is right.
The heliocentric universe was a conspiracy theory for a while. Let's ponder that one, right? Like, conspiracy theories are just theories about people organizing in groups to structure information.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need to reappropriate the term. Anyway, we should totally go to the questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like, I love where this is.
Yes. All right. Here are the questions. I do the refresh. And I just landed. I don't have my main machine out, so the machine is very slow. So apologies.
While that's loading, I Am had a good point about history being forked. He and I were talking about that yesterday a little bit on the coffee show, and it was an interesting concept of like, what we're talking about a little bit is that, when you talk about the history being written by the victors and stuff like that, really it's like a fork in the history chain. You
Right.
gotta find the correct fork, which one's right.
Social Media Enhancement Commission. That's what it was. I forgot about that. There's
the
a couple of
Social
enabling
Media
acts from the
Enhancement
30s.
Commission. I love it.
There's like a lawyer named Pecora that helped set it up or something. I don't know.
What a great name.
And I mean, about that too. Anyway, we'll get into the history stuff. So, okay.
Yeah, we will.
Here we go.
Sorry, I didn't mean to gaslight everybody. That's one of the things that history properly recorded can avoid. But, all right. So, question number 1, and who did we get? Can you scroll back up? I didn't see who posted.
Sorry. Yes.
I think that was Jacob Wayne, wasn't it? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we have Jacob Wayne. Hey, man. Asking a hypothetical with a question. I love these. These are great. So we're going to suppose that we had blockchain technology when 9/11 happened. I'm curious how this event would have been recorded. Ideas. All passengers on flights with time of purchase, when they bought tickets, black box recordings in each airplane would be on chain. Plausible. Flight classes, possibly of terrorists. Movement of terrorists in the United States. Exact damage to each of the many buildings, including the Twin Towers. Quotes from insurance agencies to exact damage. Problems. Now, putting on your tinfoil hat, or maybe just a baseball cap. Tin baseball cap sounds kind of cool, actually. If this was an inside job, what would have been recorded on chain?
I've definitely thought about that.
Unpack there.
I've thought about that. I've got something to say about it real quick, because the type of data that I would want, and this is really like, this is the kind of stuff that was possible. I guess I'll plug Dragon Chain for a second, but one of the things that blew my skull off whenever I was reading the docs on Dragon Chain and trying to figure out what the hell this was like, oh, this enables things like every little piece of data to go on chain. Like nobody's done this before, to where you can, with this tech, where you can prove you can have your syslogs on chain, right? Or more importantly, with this question, radar data, right? Coming out of the Navy and working with radars and stuff. I'm just thinking, like, what if in real time we were able to have systems that were proving radar data as it occurred, and plane spotters reports as it occurred, or more importantly, video and photographic evidence as it was taken and as it occurred, right. So that in the future there was no room to say, oh, that's a Photoshop, or oh, that's fake, or oh, that's just CGI, and that kind of thing, right? You can say, no, this is how it was taken at the time. This is a capture that was proven in real time and posted to this block number on Bitcoin, and it would cost $11 gajillion to fake that piece of data.
But isn't it still a human proving it?
It is, right. It is, but
So
you're dramatically, like, you're never going to get to a perfect world. That would be great, but you're dramatically reducing, like, the likelihood of it being false.
And it's all about exactly. It's about the fact that it would be a massive amount of what would normally be very mundane data. And that's like
Yes.
when we go in and talk to someone.
You never know what mundane data is going to be no longer
Right.
mundane.
In fact,
Right.
I would bet the tell would be that the chain of blame would be far too clear. There would be like a flash loan exploit in March, followed by a couple registrations that happen under falsely obtained government credentials. That's what they'll say, right? There's still going to be, in this world of conspiracy theory, the notion of all or nothing identity that you don't own.
Right.
That is yours and only yours and stuck to you like somebody nailed it on with a freaking glue gun.
Yeah. And if it's a network, not just of individuals, but a network of events through time, that you end up with things that cross that would not have been prearranged. So you would be able to pull out. Right. And there are some cases too where it is where, like say in the cases where it's mundane data and it evaluates into an answer, that's what you want. There are some cases where you have single events which are known to be important ahead of time. And those are typically the situations where you need to put some type of an economic bounty or some other economic effect in order to maintain reputation, so that, you know, if you had an intel org that was running false flags all the time, they would have a really bad reputation. So you would have to say, okay, this group has never lied before. They could be lying this one time, and that's just one measure, right?
Because past performance is not an indicator of future action. In any case, even with people talking about the truth.
Right. But in this case, you would be talking about the passports, you'd be talking about the flight training, you'd be talking about the living space of these supposed attackers. You would be talking about everything which would run together, including the black boxes. What? They never found the black boxes. They found the passport on the street, but never the black boxes.
Joe just kind of mentioned something that got
really
over,
unreasonably quickly.
And I think that's like really huge, and we should talk about it for a second. First off, if you did this, I think one of the big parts of this question is you're doing what blockchain and crypto is the main focus, is the main thing, that it's giving people back control over all the information. You know, most people don't even know there was a third tower that went down in New York, because it's one of the hardest things to explain. So even people that watched it happen, people that are our age, that were staring at the TV as everything happened, they've forgotten. Whether they've forgotten because they've been kind of programmed, and then you can see it whenever, you know, you have to look for information on that third tower now. It's not super easy to find. And then all of a sudden you could see it click, and they're like, and then the panic is like, how the hell did I forget about that?
Well, there's weird pieces that fit together.
This reputation thing. Imagine if when you went to your news source, every news source, CNN, Fox, you know, whatever, they all had a reputation score. It would matter about fake news.
Well, that's a double-edged sword.
Can I say something?
But then also, when you're arguing on the social media, and like, well, where's your proof? Here's my proof. That doesn't matter.
Yes, that's the problem. That is the problem.
The reputation score of XYZ.
You don't have
journalism
adjudication systems installed. You shouldn't be tracking it down and you know, like,
this is not an exciting topic. Let's try not to.
That's the point, though. If you had all of this stuff on chain, you would be able to prove that the meme about the dude that got the leases to both towers, months before, weeks before, whatever it was, the attack. That's an interesting coincidence that he obtained these leases right before the attack. I've done the meme. I've seen it elsewhere. Is it true? I don't know. It'd be beautiful if it was on chain. And guess what? Here is probably the most important thing to say. If the people who are worried about false information, misinformation, disinformation, there's
malinformation.
We're really worried about the ill effects. If they were really worried about the ill effects to society of these different types of negative information, they would want it on chain. because they would be able to prove what really happened. But guess what?
I'm sorry.
There's a big indicator that they don't want that because they want to manipulate it.
Well, and because they don't want to
Star
have the
15 just hit the
intellectual
nail on the
run-up
head in the
pants
chat.
on well enough to explain to themselves and teach themselves ontology and ethics and axiology and all of the things that you need to understand about philosophy before you can decide whether or not anything is negative in anything resembling an objective way, right? Like that's the problem, is you've got a bunch of philosophical babies essentially deciding what right and wrong is for us based on whether or not they won a popularity contest. Like it's fucking stupid how we're doing it right now.
Yeah. It's
the right answer to 9/11, right, would have been to have better door security on planes. The end, right? That could have solved the whole thing. But up to that point, we had stories of skyjackers that were romantic. Like there was literally who's the guy who jumped out of the plane? There's a cool documentary.
DB Cooper.
Yeah,
right?
I watched a documentary about.
It was romantic. People wanted to
DB
date
Cooper.
the
That was cool.
hijacker back then.
And people loved him.
Anticipate that they would
Did y'all
weaponize
see that?
the plane.
Like Avengers, it was Loki. It was DB Cooper.
No, I didn't see that.
No. That was
God, why do you have to?
that was on the Loki show on that Owen Wilson's on.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's a good show too.
To me, the most important thing blockchain would do here is have a pre-accountability system programmed in. Like you wouldn't have a building go down and not already have insurance mechanisms in place that would automatically execute and start gathering facts using algorithms that were triggered by smart contracts the second the building was damaged, even a little bit by
I tried.
bird
I was part of a project. I was the COO. It's called Hellas. HUELSS, and it was going to be the first crypto and blockchain insurance company. And this was back 2016, 2017, and it was the best idea. It was so revolutionary and groundbreaking. But what we would do is imagine a world we were using AI and blockchain and bring it to the insurance industry. Now, I'm a former financial advisor, so the insurance industry is horrible. We talk about how evil banks are. Insurance companies own tons of banks.
Yeah.
They're like the next level.
And it's a powerful idea.
So much of what they do is legal because they have such a powerful lobby, and they are heavily regulated. Every state has its own insurance commission.
That's where the evil sneaks in.
But look, this is legal. If you're married, you're like, hey, if I die, I want to make sure my wife has money for this, for that, for the kids to go to school, whatever. I'm going to get a $200,000 life insurance policy. You're paying it for years, then boom, you die. It's over 2 years. There's past an incontestability period. There's no reason the insurance can't pay. So your husband dies, you're the wife, you put in the claim, the insurance company says, okay, no problem. But they can legally take 6 months to give you your check. Meanwhile, you have to pay for the burial, you have to pay for the funeral. You still have all these bills to pay, and there's no income.
Right.
So why would an insurance company do that? That's $200,000 that they're able to get 0.5% on.
Right.
So they would rather
Passive
get 0.5%
evil
to get that little bit of money until they legally have to give you the money. So you're taking out loans to try to make ends meet for half a year.
trash.
And that's
It just came with the worst one.
So this was the idea we had with Hellas. Look at it for car insurance. You get a car insurance policy. You take like 5-10 pictures of your car. Then you get a fender bender at a stop sign. Somebody hits you. You could literally take a picture of the police report, or it could be in PDF. Send it up. Take a picture of your car. The AI could compare original car to now busted in back end, and you could get paid in crypto at the accident.
Yeah.
Literally.
Or what about a nano drone that only releases on impact of a crash? When the airbags go off, it goes in.
Yeah, you can scale that up.
You
A lot of complexity. You need a lot of
Imagine getting you're basically done. You're ready to get the money to pay for your car and everything at the accident. Literally 5-10 minutes after it happens. Well, we ended up, which we didn't get that far, but we started out with travel insurance because it's one of the least regulated and easy. So if you get travel insurance, you go get off the plane, they lost your luggage, whatever. In the airport, you could literally get your claim done, have the money transferred, buying new clothes, all that. You don't have to go through all the paperwork and headache where you're now in in Aruba and you have no clothes, you have nothing. It's all done right immediately with AI and with blockchain. And we started the project right at the end of the bull market, the last one, right at the end of the run. We're like, we don't need an ICO, we don't need a cash grab.
They made you walk the plank to their moats.
Ran out of money. But we did get partially off the ground. We got the app done. We got it approved, and everything. But it's such. There's so many institutions that we could fix with blockchain.
Oh yeah.
I'm starting to my insurance. I'll go off.
And the trick though, right, is ultimately if we wanted to fix insurance, we can't treat blockchain like an efficiency bolt-on or like an install of a new upgraded software. Right? We have to think about it in new terms. Like when we built the Indiana legislature's voting system, one of the things that we thought about was, okay, now that these aren't running over wires that were originally wired up to desks, to follow a metaphor of whatever they used to record the votes before they had electronic systems. What would this look like now if we started fresh with the need as opposed to the metaphor for the solution? What would it look like? Are we going to be able to break some skeuomorphic assumptions that we used to take for granted? Like the 8.5 by 11 page still is breaking smartphone screens to this day because people feel a need to require that you draw it on the screen instead of display the text as wide as it can go. Like radio buttons are a thing UI designers know about, even though those haven't been installed in cars since the fucking 40s, right? Like the toggle switches where you push one down, the other one pops out.
Oh yeah.
Radio button.
There's a UI reason for it. That's a pattern.
Right? Like
that's a pattern.
There are patterns like that in society that are meta, right? Like where the law has set up these structures because, like, how else the fuck do you think about fixing a system of communication before the idea of telephones? How do you make a rule about that? Well, okay, we're going to use mail. So what does the mail do? If you think about the communication system like a really fast mailing system, we need some rules. And this is exactly what they're doing with crypto right now, right? Like they're going like,
I see where you're going.
Look a lot like financial exchanges. Let's design the UIs like that. And I go, oh, we can slap the same rules on this now. We don't have to do any work. Like, holy shit, all we've done is bolt on a more complicated database at that point. And if we can avoid the impulse to do that, we can really change.
Well, what's even worse is you're limiting what can be done by putting those rules on it, putting it in a box, right? You're saying you can only
metaphors.
You're only allowed to invent new things that fit into the old box. If anything strays from that box that we've already constructed in the past, you're not allowed to invent that.
Right. Right,
exactly. They will kill you.
Requiring that planes fly by driving.
In some cases,
they've never had anything.
Well, right now, do you guys know about the bill that they're trying to pass to put Bitcoin and Ethereum in under the CFTC?
That is actually a pretty cool piece of legislation because the
Why
CFTC
is Ethereum being swept in with it though?
Oh, because Ethereum is totally functionally the same. In terms of the level of complexity they're capable of thinking of it in.
Even with the
it uses
merge,
a similar.
That's not why. That's not an answer, Greg.
Yeah,
that might be a snarky answer, but that's not true.
No, it's totally.
Isn't it
answer.
being protected by certain people?
No. It isn't that they know it. It's nothing about knowledge. They don't know shit about Ethereum or Bitcoin. All they know is who put money in their pocket. Okay.
Right. But yeah, ultimately what it is the guy who wants to regulate it at CFTC has authority to push around are going to go ahead and lobby. That's really
I think it's very strange that Ethereum keeps getting swept in and brought along for the ride.
I think it is a really good thing, though. We're lucky.
That isn't. I mean, if they did it with all of them, sure. But otherwise, it's we're going to have Greg. We're going to have an equivalent. Right? No, we're going to have the equivalent of Amazon.com and Pets.com, and that's all we're going to have because nothing else is allowed. Amazon.com came in, and Pets.com comes in, and nothing else is allowed. You can't do that. That's you're exchanging money.
Either of these regulatory bodies, like this is a stupid stopgap solution for both of them.
it's bad for the world. So
I agree.
Right. I mean, honestly, the government should just frankly stay out of it until they understand what it does.
I agree.
Yeah. Why aren't they? It is
But I
obvious.
really don't like the idea that because they're being unfair to the other smart contract chains, that we shouldn't be allowed to treat the one that they want to privilege as a thing that, like, it's still,
like I said, if you want to
set
live
up
with
a neutral
AT&T for
Ethereum
60
node
years,
network
sure.
and run it. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you wanted to set up your own side chain based entirely on the EVM, you could literally set up the nodes, set a new network ID, and it would be an independent blockchain that looks a lot like Bitcoin.
And guess what? That is exactly what Binance Chain is, and what pretty much what all other chains are. There's no innovation because if you're using the EVM, you're safe. Like, well, I mean, what about Monero? What about
Ethereum and creating real projects? Are creative as fuck and deserve the same support that all the people building on the other chains deserve. You know, the fact that we can maybe throw some rocks at the way the system's being done is unfair will only result in them leveling the playing field further down the status quo spiral. Like, we're going to get something worse if we try to say, well, that's not fair if you give them that. Like,
I don't know.
I don't think that's the point. I think when you have corruption and pretty near obvious corruption going on in the government related to these projects, you have to not just say, "Oh, that's good because number go up," and that's the only fucking reason people will say that.
I mean, the only reason that I'm defending Ethereum here right now is because I know for a fact that that there are an assload of different motivations and things on this decentralized network, just like there are in Bitcoin. Like, there are political groups that suck and want to stuff us in Amazon Pets.com Part 2. And then there are people out there who actually still have, cypherpunk values at heart that want to transform society. And right now they're living in conflict with another on the same ecosystem.
I don't think it's
still pretty stochastic.
I don't think it's so much as a throwing stones at Ethereum or bashing Ethereum because they get a free pass,
well,
which
it's demanding equity is what it's.
But what I'm saying is I think Ethereum's great. The concept of Ethereum, the idea of Ethereum, I think it's great. It's awesome.
Yep.
And things like that should absolutely be supported because it'll save us, even from like a national security, like whatever scope you want to put it in, And to get back into the question a little bit, and because Sean likes to talk about insurance so much, the question about like the exact damage done in the buildings and the insurance quotes for the exact damage and being able to prove all of that, that kind of thing. That's what that enables,
Ethereum nodes,
so I don't know if I buy that if Ethereum gets to get the free pass and we get to show off how amazing it is, then everybody else will benefit because we can point at that and say, yeah, cool, they did it, now let's do it. Because we're seeing that not happen today.
Well, and
we're seeing that not work out at all.
Because I feed my dogs and my spouse on this thing. So
that's
of course, I don't want them to turn it into a security and shove it into the same box they've stuffed unfairly.
Ethereum is great, and Ethereum has an absolute, obviously a place in the world for value to humankind. But you're not going to have any. You already have issues with innovation from the Bitcoin maximalists and the Ethereum maximalists.
Oh, they suck, man. They all suck. You're right.
If you don't open it up, again, it's exactly as if we were to say, oh, this is the internet, this is the web, and this is the only way you can have it because it's the stupidest thing in the world. Why didn't they do it then? Why? Because there were no moneyed interests. Right. There were no banks that were threatened by the internet.
Right? And somebody doesn't have the imagination to draw it anymore once you take away their actual UI kit and their trained designer, right? Like,
well, the imagination thing is a problem.
What they can order somebody else to make for them.
Because, like, to Joe's point a little bit, I think Ethereum and things like Ethereum, especially the ones that are being slandered by our regulatory agencies, Ethereum's more like a computer than it is like a money, right? But it's being treated like a money. It's like taking the mainframe and saying that's a dollar bill.
It is a ledger,
that's a monetary asset
that is capable of being validated by consensus, that has a feature that goes beyond Bitcoin in the sense that you can have addresses that do automation when you send them signals.
But I would argue that you love it for one reason, but it's being protected because the banksters love it for the fees.
Right. I know
that's why it's being protected and swept in.
Well, sure.
That
Lisa's
can't really
right
be yet, though, right?
about
the banks
that, because
don't
there's
own
even
the miners yet. Like, it's not proof of stake yet.
there's developers openly talking about not wanting to do things with Ethereum because it makes it less institutionally investable and things like that. You know,
Huddle Signal
like that's
kind of
Personally bullish ETC
said
right
something
now.
focus right now.
that needed to be said.
What's that?
Huddle Signal said the competitors of Ethereum are now targeted by the SEC and FinCEN because they haven't been selected by
Right.
the political class that
The
are
problem
for
isn't,
sale.
though, that
haven't
we
paid
got
the
this
piper.
favoritism. The problem is that we have people selecting it all. FinCEN,
Yeah.
SEC, that's the social media one again. I keep seeing them everywhere, man.
It's crony.
Um,
It's cronyism. It's
Yeah.
Those
very
need to go away.
obvious.
We need to stop that shit. We don't need to be like, you guys need to put this one in equally unfair shackles as all these
Yes.
others. We need to stop having
Yeah.
shackles.
Well, that's the thing. The banking committee went after Bitcoin in the mid 2012, 2014, whenever that was. And that was an obvious, it's the banking committee, right? In
of
the
course.
Senate that, the
Hey, banking
banks
committee,
were scared of
do you
Bitcoin.
approve of a thing that makes banks
Guess
a redundancy
what?
industry?
Yeah, guess what? When the ICO craze happened in 2017, the VCs were sweating. They were seeing all billions of dollars that wasn't going to them anymore. It was going over there. And guess what happened immediately after, in early 2018? Letters went out to every
Literally
project.
John Oliver dancing around in suits that were meant to denigrate crypto.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But I'm just
There's a
saying.
propaganda campaign.
Yeah, well, the venture capitalists and banks went after the rest of crypto, and I think it was this. I used to see it as like a hydra. When the banks tried to push down Bitcoin, all these others popped up, right? That freaked them out, so they go to the SEC and they make arbitrary decisions. They let a couple sneak through, somehow. Oh, they are decentralized enough, whatever the fuck that means.
Right. I mean. Yeah, exactly. How does that even make sense in Howie? There's no decentralization tenet to it. Like, I think the trick is like the federal court reaches a limit on the filing system. So once they have this many plaintiffs,
I wanted to say something.
Then you can't file a case.
If I could just get a second. Yeah. Dream YT says basically I'm a stupid fat man, and I do. Everybody knows I'm the dumbest guy here. That's fine.
You're not the dumbest guy.
I have been trying to lose weight though. It's very tough to lose weight, especially.
Don't feed the trolls, man.
Especially when, every time I fuck your wife, she makes me a sandwich, and I have been eating so many sandwiches lately. So it's tough, man. It's tough. It is. But I appreciate your comment, bud.
Who was that again?
They're gone now. It's a drive-by troll. One of the things I have a question, I guess, and it's getting back to Jacob Wayne's question and the topic on history and things like that. And maybe a little bit related to conspiracy theories, like we were talking about earlier. There's a lot of like, oh, this is about the bank. This is about making something into finances that are not finances. What the technology allows us to do historically is like prove that governments are full of shit, right? So is there a pushback from that angle? Like back with the 9/11, the Twin Towers, and what happened and what didn't happen and things like that. Because you can use this for, insurance agencies should love this technology because it enables things to be so much more efficient and provable and things like that. But is there some secret society shadowy pushback about like, hey, we cannot allow this technology to flourish because it will ruin everything that we've been building for generations in our family?
Those tend to fail, though, right? Like, I'm sure that somebody tried to float a regulation that said every driver of a car has to have a government spec riding crop in their back pocket just in case they need to slap the car back into submission. But everybody
always
knew it was
think
nonsense,
about that.
so it kind of stopped.
Like, if you were to live in the Old West, you could ride a horse at any speed. It could be dangerous to you. It could be dangerous to somebody else, but
right.
You could drive that horse at any speed you wanted, which is so odd to me. The concept of a speed limit is so funny.
We're faster on different days, right? Like it was a habit as opposed to, and it still is a habit. People go the speed they're going to go, whatever the sign says, right? But you just couldn't put a sign up because you couldn't put a meter on how fast the horse is running.
Yes. I will say, speaking of which, I've always had this this dream to have an app that you put on your phone that would always track how fast you go, so that you could walk into court and show proof that you were not speeding at that point in time. And if you had a premium membership, then you'd get extra features, right? Maybe reports into court or something like that.
I've always wanted to do one. Actually, Joe, on the same lines, we should build this together, because I've got one to a feature to add onto that. If you sign up for monetization, you buy a dash cam that comes pre-installed with a smart contract hookup that every time your AI records a police officer, it plots it on a GPS positioning system and sends it to the central server automatically. And you get paid for helping GPS track the cops by collective vision.
Waze has that. It's not automatically though, but you can
pay you, right?
On Waze. Yeah,
and it's fund the AI the AI development to make that happen off of what you would make from that.
I'm interested to hear if you guys, with the next question, I'm just no.
You think they'd be like okay with the idea that the cops can follow, since the cops can follow you around, you can follow them around collectively with cams?
They wouldn't like that.
Yeah, you can do that on that Waze app right now. Like it's a social.
Well, and by the way, if I were to integrate blockchain into Waze, what they should be doing is giving you more info if you give accurate feedback. So if you report a cop first, you're going to get the first notification. Hey, there is a cop. There's a speed trap. Whatever.
Right.
They should be doing something like that, but they aren't.
Right.
So
and
you can be lazy.
A chunk of what we make goes to this fund to force them to put trackers on cops that read in the app. We can legislate that if we took control of it. Anyway,
you mean transparency in our enforcement systems? Come on.
Right, exactly. Wouldn't it be insane? There's no speed traps. You just know where they are. Josh O asks, could there be a downside to recording history on chain? You have to be careful about this. This is a very good question.
It's an interesting question, because you would think, like Sean started already,
Yeah.
Because you would think no, but I don't know.
It depends. The answer is it depends on what chain you're talking about. Like, say, if Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of these other great chains out there that are approved for by the state for use, okay? If any of these chains were scalable enough to record an embarrassing video of yourself as a teenager, you would be screwed, right?
Right.
Because it's going to be there forever. Now, luckily, they aren't, and that's why. Again, this is a Dragon Chain plug. That's why Dragon Chain does what it does for scaling, because not only could it scale to do that, but it can actually, because, and this is a very abstract point, but very simple, that it's probably its most powerful feature or pattern architecturally, is that it separates the payload from the proof. So you can have the payload and show the proof and show that was me, haha. But you can also ask the system to destroy the payload, and then the proof points to nothing. There's nothing there, and it's still as legitimate. The security is still as high as Bitcoin and Ethereum combined, as well as what other chains.
And does the proof include the ability to even go back and make sure that you didn't, surreptitiously use the same destruction mechanism with a different timestamp later by somehow surreptitiously recovering it, right?
Well, depending on the system, but yeah, essentially it would be the proper implementation would be that the request to remove the data would be on chain as well, right? So you would know, wait a minute, this data is missing. Oh, I can see that the owner removed.
So if you if you made a contract with the city government to do a system and they wanted to make sure that transparency system was in place, you could record your own work for them in a similar system, such that you could have an identifier for the document that proves that you did it the right way.
Right.
According to the will of whoever funded it, which is the taxpayer.
Yeah. And it's funny because we have offered this to several high-level corps, various bigger industries, and I don't know if it's just too early, right? But the fact that we can allow GDPR, CCPA utility, but not only that, we can prove it. So, and that's the thing. People say, "Oh, you can't really do privacy stuff with blockchain because it's going to be there forever." And it's like, that's entirely that's not true at all. And the fact that you can do it is one thing, but more importantly, the reason you want it on chain is because you can prove that you did it to that user. You can prove to the user.
Record can be a representative
about the
thing
proving. How does exactly
privacy.
does it work though? Because let's take a case, the Trump dossier. It comes out. It is a proven fact.
Right.
Here it is in the media. Here it is on the blockchain now recorded that he has done these things.
Right.
And
we could have.
But then it changes, and it's proven that it's not. Or would it have to have been clearer that it wasn't?
Well, we could have, for instance,
Hunter
right away.
If that came out, that is here, like, because that was proven real way back when. So that would have stopped certain publications from saying, "Oh, it's disinformation. Oh, it's fake," because you could say, "Hey, it's already been proven."
Right.
Yeah.
And they could have, for instance, proven that Steele was an employee of an opponent candidate, right? Like that this was a requested work product that was delivered according to a contract. They could have actually seen that in advance, as opposed to.
And I don't know if I totally understand what you mean, Sean, but like say on this point, if, as an individual. Let's say we're all crypto degens, and we're it's like, oh, we're nothing but number grow up, and it's the funniest thing in the world that these very people who invest in crypto and trade crypto don't use it in a damn place. The exchanges don't use it. They don't use it. They just trade it, and it's crazy.
Like the Twitter people not having any fucking Twitter stock, their entire board, right?
Yeah.
15%
exactly.
is enough to take it over still.
Yeah. And so the things there very well might be things that you would be embarrassed to have on chain, but that's the beauty if you do it right, that you can have the proof of the things you want to prove, and you don't ever have to expose the things you don't want.
I think there's a really important thing here. A line is blurred between journalism and history, and that's where we need to kind of clear that. History is a proven fact. So if this would go on chain, that the Trump dossier, because for a long time it was fact, but it wasn't history. So it was presented as this is fact, this is real, this is proven already, and this is this is the truth. And then we find out like months or a year or so down the road, this is not proof, or this is not real, this is not fact. There was a lot of hijinks going on. And so then in the end, it became history. But if not, what I was talking about, to clear it up, Joe, is that if we record it, so much of what we believe to be true at the time is actually a hoax or is not real. So I think making a difference between history and journalism, or history and whatever's trending.
I think the key thing for me, the major downside to recorded history being on chain in almost its entirety, like if you had perfect information transparency into all events, all at once in real time, the only thing that limited you was which channels you wanted to be streamed at any given moment for a given application. But total information awareness in the truest sense of the term, blockchains tracking molecular movement, right? You would have to have a really mature society. We have to get past the notions that we've ingrained in society about justice as a way to help the mechanisms that have now broken the skeuomorph. Like, just like I was saying with the radio buttons, our sense of justice today is based on the systems we used to have to use to bring it about, that required us to do things that were dangerous, that were necessarily ineffective half the time, and required us to use fear and force instead of preemptive subversion of evil, harm, or evils and the impacts they cause, right? Like, if we have permanent and perfect history, we have to stop being as punitive as we are as a society. We have to get over the notion that we need to take revenge on people who get caught doing shit, because everybody's shit's getting caught after that.
Related to that, I mean, there's this dynamic, sort of a dynamic range of reality among the human race too, right? There's a lot of people that I question, and you can call them, tuned into their own reality, or you can call them NPCs, or you can call them, political bandwagoners or whatever. But the concept of measurable truth for the first time ever. If you were to just break everyone's reality with something like measurable history, that kind of thing, measurable truth throughout history, what does that do to people? You know what I mean? Can people handle that? I think of like in A Few Good Men, Jack Nicholson screaming, "You can't handle the truth," or Cypher from The Matrix. You know, I don't agree with most of what he did,
like
but
Twitter
he had a
having to give
interesting point about
Elon the
ignorance and things like that.
I think that's what's about to happen with Twitter handing over that information to Elon. I think the bot information is going to blow people's mind.
There's a word in there
about it.
They exposed an internal systems acronym in one of the original filings. I really can't wait to find out what that thing is. I forget what it is, but like there's something or other system that he wanted full access to.
And that's the thing. It's never like, say, in the highly connected world, you know, before you had to wait months for a message to travel. It's an interesting thing. It's never been tried to actually record the literal truth. I mean, it's a tool. And if anyone believes that history is valuable for its ability to help us build a better future, and it is, then you should want an accurate history. And the problem is right now, so many things that we know, that we were taught are very inaccurate. I was looking for it. I couldn't find the meme of Norm Macdonald, he's, smirking there and he's reading this thing. It says here that for some reason in history, all of the winners of all of the good guys have always won, right? Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Right? It's that's exactly what the issue is. And
you have this weird narrative arc that always starts with a Pearl Harbor-like event and ends with everybody,
I think the first culture that openly accepts that level of honesty is going to be radically powerful, because they're not going to have the stupidity of divide and conquer based upon our emotional BS and identities. And, because we can be split apart. If all of a sudden everything was open and they're like, well, that's a fact, it doesn't mean that.
And it doesn't even have to,
but not privately.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to all be open either, right? There, the idea of state secrets can still exist. It's just that whenever you have
searchable.
Wait, should they?
Or whenever a state decides to put out information to the public, it would be really freaking handy to be able to say, here's the information and here's the proof attached to it, right? Maybe all the secrets are still secret, but they're proven until they're declassified, and then you can reach back and say, oh, no, this is real.
Operation Paperclip really happened.
Then you have, the crazy thing is, if we do this right, and it might take us 100 years, and we'll probably all kill all of us before we get there. I almost guarantee it. But that if we do this right, 500 years in the future, they're going to actually know what happened, unlike us. Yeah. It's going to be crazy interesting.
And that's important too. Like we can't bog down on the past right now. We have to start now doing it in a way where we don't repeat the same mistakes or where we don't get the same divide and conquer in the past.
Don't obsess with avenging every injustice now that we can see them all.
For example, I don't know personally whether there was massive election fraud or not. I don't know for sure. I know that the people that are saying that there wasn't have no way to prove that. Right.
We know there weren't WMDs, but we still haven't gone back and processed.
And I know that always tell, by the way. Yeah. Can I say something? The same thing. Whenever in the mid 2000s there was a terrorist attack, like say the army base or whatever else. If they come out immediately and say there was no terrorist attack involved, then you're like, wait a minute. I understand you saying that, but I would expect that you would look into it and actually know what the hell happened before you just come out and say there's not a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
You remember when the plane went down in Queens? Yeah, you remember when the plane went down in Queens and I think it was in October, November in 2001, and it's like this was not a terrorist attack. It's just the wings were loose. They just fell off. It's a bad thing that happens.
You remember that one big explosion?
That joke is real.
And like it was that is a big red flag for me too. When everything immediately, it's like, oh, cut and dry, easy, on this box, we got to take care of.
Right. If there's a press conference 15 minutes later where they explain it
in the middle of the city, and it looked, and then certain things came out with like a CCTV feeds where it looked like a missile hit. and everybody's like, no, it was a gas explosion, took out like a
Yeah.
city block. Or what?
Right.
And it was like instantly.
Oh shit!
Like within an hour or two. Oh, it was a gas explosion, and it was this happened. It wasn't a truck full of
If you
explosives.
freeze frame the security
Definitely
footage on that, you can get a guy literally sitting in a chair-like position in the video feed. Like, it's actually pretty nuts on that explosion.
Huh.
And that's, I guess, what Bitcoin really did fundamentally. That's the most important to me personally, is that it made it much more difficult to lie, right?
Yeah.
And the implication of making it much more difficult to lie is pretty mind-blowing, because that leads to all sorts of implications.
I'll tell you something that's an indicator to watch for. I don't think this would happen, but because I could never figure out as an engineer why Bitcoin was purposely crippled in various ways from doing what its original vision was. A scalable cash system instead of a store value, instead of something else. And if ever they restrict the ability to throw certain types of transactions on Bitcoin that can, you can just put a piece of data, you pay a fee, there's no transfer, you put a piece of data there. If they try to restrict the ability to push certain data unless it's a large enough transfer, you'll know it's because they're wanting to kill the use of that network for anything other than the limited crippled set that they've built in.
That's exactly why OFAC's thing with Tornado Cash is so dangerous. Right? Because essentially this is the first one, but any smart contract address that they want to make sure nobody can interact with, they just say, this person that is this line of code over here that nobody owns or can update, or like, are people going to start building in AI like in the next question?
That's the thing.
So that
they tried to
appeal for the smart contract. Like, what the fuck?
They tried to push what was called colored coins early on, because the banks, if you want us to use this, if you crypto people want us to use this, number go up, then you're going to put in these colored coins so we can see if there's a drug deal that same Bitcoin can't be used somewhere else.
Yes,
and the Bitcoin community
do is make the drug war easier to prosecute.
Yeah, well, in the Bitcoin community, because they were still cypherpunks back then, said no damn way. Forget that. That's bad. If they did that now, I think it would go through.
Well, maybe it would go through on that chain, but at the same time, like, all of this is still censorship fundamentally, right? The network will route around. Someone will build an alternative, and it will go big, because that's what happens.
Unless it's not allowed to, Greg, because Bitcoin and Ethereum have made it in because they're controlled. Guess what?
I'm not saying that it will be allowed. I'm saying that there will be people guarding doors with guns at 5 different locations, and one of the engineering teams will get one off the ground before they can stop them.
Right. I agree with you, Greg. Like, even if it's completely outlawed to develop new technology in the United States, which seems like where we're heading, it's going to be done somewhere else. And this is where, me as a veteran and a kind of like a military mindset a little bit is thinking, like, it's so stupid to cripple yourself against other nation states, because this is something that the genie is way out of the bottle, and it's not going to be shoved back into it. And the more we cripple ourselves, there is such a rapid pace of development in this industry that's brand new, where it takes a year of spinning wheels and your lifetime's behind. Like, to catch up on that, you're going to need, like, the US is going to have a some kind of multi-billion-dollar catch-up initiative where they're like, oh shit.
Guess where all that money's going to go?
And it'll be a boondoggle. It won't work.
Right? They'll put a whole bunch of money into. We need 87,000 smart contract developers on the no solidity.
Yeah,
and guess where
they'll hire them tomorrow?
I'll be on my floating city out in the middle of the fucking ocean, because you scared away all the good developers, and we were already friends.
Yeah, the brain drain is happening. The people leaving to build elsewhere is happening. The erosion of public faith in our ability to self-govern is happening. All of that's happening, and it's been happening for at least, I don't know how long. I posted
the poll in the private chat where that first link is a poll that they did that says, maybe you can't hear me.
I saw it. No, we can hear you.
No,
okay. It says a major threat to the stability of the country. Big government ranks 52%. And trusting the government to do what is right is only 2%. says just about always, and only 19% say most of the time. In other words, 79% of Americans don't trust the government to do
Wow,
what's
and
right.
that's just Americans with landline phones. That's amazing.
That's good. I mean, that's a good thing. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
pretty
do you wanna
darn
read the
American
question?
to question your
So,
government.
yeah,
That's
let's
Time
do
to
the
read
last
the
one.
preamble of the Constitution, I think. in my opinion.
Sorry, did I miss?
Oh,
Okay.
go ahead.
No, Tina, Lisa was saying that it's probably time to read the preamble of the Constitution. It's probably time to read all the Constitution,
Yeah,
I think
including
it's probably time to rewrite that with.
Yeah, we should
with
probably do
current
that one
events.
over, and well, maybe we shouldn't. I don't know. Well, we can talk about that another day. But right now, we have a question from Reject Archons.
all right.
And the question is, can we talk about the ever-growing need for AI technology to go hand in hand with blockchain? Blockchain is one long archive, and while people might want to study through it, eventually blockchains will become boundless libraries of just information. Will everyone need their own AI bot, and then some, right? Like, in my opinion, the breakthrough is one of data cleanliness. You can have a data that's validated in advance, and it's just going to mean that the AI is going to explode. You won't have just one AI; you'll have an AI for every little function on your smartphone, or for every instant on your brain connection if you get one, or whatever.
I think the best conspiracy theory is going to come from AIs. They start putting things together and finding patterns, the pattern recognition, and the speed at which you can do that.
Oh yeah, Dolly 2's going to be making videos next year.
Can I say something that there is a role for AI, and people a lot of times think AI is a very binary thing, that it's either a human level or dolphin level or not. But it's a big scale, and there's valuable capabilities you can get from even the dumbest AI. But I think that AI is overhyped. Number one, and in fact, we've seen AI is particularly dangerous, and blockchain can probably tame that a little bit. But you can see what's happened with, especially Facebook and their AI. That it's essentially really bad for culture. But here's the thing: I think that markets and behavior markets are where it's at, because, as an example, Den has no AI implementations. We have something that was built on the outside that we are yet to integrate, that does semantic analysis to help people, but the evaluation, in my opinion, is not best done by an AI. The evaluation of content is best done by people who have a lot broader understanding of the.
We've got great AI right here.
Stuff that makes it so they don't have time to read it.
Right.
Like, the AI should be doing boring bullshit, and we should be the ones thinking.
Right. Exactly. And that's my angle on it.
Go to people.
Yeah. And you can use, like, AI, you can use with blockchain in some ways like that. It can do a semantic analysis so that people can say, oh, I didn't think what I wrote was negative, but now when I look at it again, it's like, oh, I'm going to adjust it a little bit to make it a little happier for people, whatever. You can do stuff like that. Or
think of the poor traffic cops, though, who will no longer be able to pull you over for driving with your smartphone because your car is your chauffeur now, and you don't have to worry about it not paying attention.
That's a massive revenue hit for police departments. You know what I mean?
They're gonna hate it.
Yeah. Like the job, well, that's getting into off-topic stuff. But yeah,
to help people.
AI is great for things like self-driving cars and things like that, where it's fantastic for some applications.
And in the case where you really do want to apply, in my opinion, where you really do want to apply AI for a reason that might affect people, whether it's medical, because there's a lot of very big applications, pharmaceutical, medical, that could be used to help people. You can use blockchain to tame it. You can use blockchain so that the results are auditable. That you can say, okay, it apparently made these 3 mistakes. We need to retrain it. All that would be on chain. And so, it would be more honest. It would be really
one
nice.
thing we probably wouldn't want to do is necessarily put inputs from humans on chain with the AI's data sets you would want to be careful about combining data sets, right? Especially if you're crossing protocols. That would be a thing where you would want to have some kind of governance around how that merge happened and what database properties.
I don't know.
You can categorize data
I would
sets.
say, let's say you are in a hospital bed, you're unconscious, they're about to deliver pharmaceuticals to you, right? They make a mistake. They've done multiple studies on this, that a fake doctor can call up, claim they're a doctor that someone's never heard of before, and the staff will go through whatever they say because it's authority.
Right. You just have
and
to
it's a
know the
cultural
call and voice to use.
Right. Imagine if, as simple as the all of the process of that delivery happening, and every single step would say, wait a minute, this medicine is wrong for that patient. This dosage is wrong for their size or whatever else. The blockchain side could immediately, with the AI, could say, hold. We need 4 verifications. We need like a couple of nurses. We need a few doctors eyeball on this.
Even Joe, you could use a Dragon Chain-like system to behind the scenes capture your own personal DNA and key your medicine directly to DNA before it's prescribed. You print a custom molecule that checks the identity of the patient before it activates, because it makes
they've done other cancers, right? I mean, they've done some amazing things with cancers on that. I mean, it's still early, but
it's possible to program cells, and it's possible to program AIs to understand mass amounts of information like cellular movements, and putting that on chain will make it transparent.
Joe, I like
technology will ultimately merge.
It's funny what Lisa just brought up with the tweet, and then Huddle Signal says that they lost our trust, and government has not earned our trust. The insanity of that statement is so huge when you step back and think about it, because government's not a thing. It's not.
Why do you ever give it to them?
Idea, and government is supposed to be us. It's we the people. So to say we don't trust the government should mean we don't trust ourselves. But the fact that that statement itself means we all understand the government is not ours. Yeah. We, the people, are not in control of this monster. It has become its own runaway thing that is trying to control us. That statement is just it so makes it so clear that we, the people, it is not our government. We do not control it. It's not our thing. Because to say we don't trust the government would mean and should mean we don't trust what we're doing, and we're not doing it. It's a certain group that is doing it.
This is a gigantic can of worms, man. Like and you're absolutely right. This is you got the core of the problem. And if you hear what Sean just said and you think, no way is it that simple. The problem is, at its core, when you add up all the rows, it is that simple. But in order to find all those rows and assemble all of that data, you have to do years of research, right? Like, and we don't have time to put that here, and you wouldn't want to listen to it. But you don't make those kinds of intelligent summaries without having studied it. If you've looked at it, what he said was right on.
The new possibilities we have today, though, are like governments used to require trust. All of these systems used to require trust. We have trustless systems now that we can use, And so the big question is, why would you not want to use something that's objectively better? And it's on the shelf and ready to go. Ready to go. It's ready. It's there. Can use it all day long. But
because they've governed through corruption.
But it takes away the necessity of trust. It takes away the requirement of trust.
He said 1 minute.
I think he said he'll be right back.
Yeah, okay, cool. Be right back. So I was going to try something new today instead of outros.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to give everybody like 1 minute and 30 to 2 minutes to just like
soapbox,
parting thoughts monologue if they want to use it.
Oh God.
Yeah, I hope everybody had a prepared monologue.
No, I mean, just like, I just want to see if anybody has anything to say instead of wants to tell us again what are the Twitter accounts or whatever.
What's the deal with the airline peanuts, man?
Right.
But yeah, that's with what Sean was saying and what they were saying in chat is we don't have to do things the way that we've always done them anymore. We have the ability to do things differently, and I have to question why people choose not to. Right? Whether it's because they listen to someone that they trust who said that it's bad, and so now they think it's bad.
That
which is a lot of people.
You just made was probably made like in a tavern 200 and some years ago, and they're like,
and just as right back then. Right?
Why are we doing this? Let's just start our own country.
Yeah, right.
Well, free men don't ask permission, right?
Right. Why don't we start a thing that's not a country that place holds for one. Is what
And with recorded history and stuff, the topic here today, Lisa was talking about the Constitution and the preamble, and I have to wonder if what I've read is the original thing. I don't know. Like when you run back far enough, you have to admit to yourself, like, it's somewhere along the line you're trusting somebody with your reality.
Even your own ability to intuit things from what you read.
And I've gone back and forth on, so like 2A, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I've read 3 different versions of the Second Amendment, and it all comes down to punctuation. Are there 2 commas? Is there a semicolon? Are there no semicolons or commas? Right. And I don't know. And if I go down to the museum and I look at it in the glass thing, I'm still trusting that institution to tell me, no, this is the original document.
Depending on which district.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, it's like, I really don't freaking know. If you follow that back far enough, I've got no way to not trust someone to tell me what reality is. But we can start today and change that. We can't go back and do that, but we can start.
We can't do that ever, though, right? Like, we can't. Even if we had access to that information, it would be unsatisfying to live like that, because ultimately, what people do at the very bottom is decide what they're for, given the facts, right? Like,
well, okay, we can still operate the same way, but people's reputations would be more easily judged, I guess.
Well, and that's what I'm trying. That's exactly what I'm driving.
R15 hit it on the nail on the head with it. The reputation is so necessary now, because it's not just people will say, I believe this because it came from this source. People will discount it. Like if it came from CNN, but CNN used to be like a legitimate thing.
If it's CNN archival from '92, then maybe.
And that's decided for us by people who tell us that CNN isn't trustworthy, which that's a bad example. Like a better example would be the New York Post, right? The first time I ever got censored on Twitter that blew my mind was I asked a simple question. I had a link to an article on the New York Post, and it was about Hunter Biden's laptop thing, and I'm like, oh, that's weird and interesting. Has anybody seen this? What is your opinion?
Right? And you have the bandwidth, and it's like,
you know what I mean? Hey, has anybody seen this? And it's just like, never happened. I never sent it. There's no history of it. It doesn't say this tweet's been deleted. Nothing. It was just
like a mailing address where you can ask for your information back if you're polite.
You know what I mean? There's this huge like
Men in Black show up at your door.
I don't necessarily like everything that the Post puts out. I think a lot of it
and ultimately like that, that social media agency that I was talking about. I think that's what they're really after, right? When it really comes down to it, it's not so much that there are these platforms out there that might be somehow violating whatever enabling act that was supposed to be for, or whatever. I don't know. All that stuff's super complex, and I don't want to comment on it. But ultimately, it's probably what they're after is making sure that when this is all over, someone from the Atlantic Council has a seat on a thing called the censorship board at whatever's left over when they're done, right? Like, that's what they're shooting for. That's why they're here. They just can't say that part because that's not what they were enabled to do. They were enabled to do social media back when they invented it in the 40s.
You just gave me an idea of what I'll go out with.
Sorry, I'm being very facetious. I hope everybody knows that I'm not stupid.
I don't know. On that. I'm just kidding.
I'm being stupid. I'm not.
Everybody knows that I'm
being intentionally obtuse. I'm being deliberately obtuse.
But yeah, I just hate that the
absurdity.
I don't know if hate's the right word. It's disheartening and disappointing that we have literal examples of things that we've been warned about in the past, and we also have reason or easy, affordable, accessible ways to fix it, and we're just not.
And I like to talk about this a lot.
Benjamin Franklin said, "If people could learn, they could vote to get money. That'll be the end of the republic."
I think that was
really what they do.
I haven't seen that, but yeah.
No, I think that was the French dude, the Marquis Lafayette. I think that was Lafayette. We'd have to check.
I just read it the other day. They say it was it's they say it's Franklin said it, but then there's like a controversy over whether he said it or not.
There always is. They always
basically if people find out that you can vote You can make money by voting for it. That'll be the end of the republic, which is what they do. It's like, hey, vote for me and you get some free money. Literally,
Right, vote for me and
ran on, hey, vote for me, and everybody
husband will get
gets
insider stock
an income.
traders.
You know,
There's the thing though too. It's like it's the level of absurdity is off the charts. I mean, the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing and the censorship of that. I mean, it would have been a normal thing if a politician's son was on crack. I mean, maybe not normal that he filmed everything and left it in a laptop, but the fact that
wacky, honestly, like,
who wouldn't have thought that the Post or the Inquirer or somebody wouldn't make a lot of money off that? I mean, that's an obvious thing.
I
But
just hate that no matter what
censored like that, you're like, wait a minute.
Some really grotesque images. Like,
Dave said something like
shit.
at the beginning of the show, talking about being in the military. And if you've been in the military or even around it, you will understand what I'm saying. Biden should never have. He's been in government longer than I've been alive, and I'm a grandfather.
Yeah.
But when you're in the military and you have that security clearance, it's really, really important. But you can't do stuff that would compromise it. Like they investigate you deeply. They ask your neighbors.
Military versus politicians, though.
Well, but they have this high security clearance.
I know, but
they should literally have said, "Hey, man, your son is
seriously wake up tomorrow,
addict.
feel like he's in 1992 and launch nukes."
Yeah,
like,
they would pull my clearance and destroy my job over owing too much money to someone.
Yeah.
because that could potentially be used to compromise me, right? Something as simple as that.
If you cheat on your wife,
yet literally, if a politician, because you had Senator Leahy leaking top secret info, you had I think it was Dingell, I can't remember, in the 80s leaking top secret info, and it's several times since to no effect, right? So they don't, the political elite don't have the same rules.
Of course they don't,
especially in certain parties.
Right. If they had the same rules, they wouldn't be called elite, right? Like that's kind of by definition.
Yeah. Well, we shouldn't have that term.
We should not. Well, we shouldn't have those people, right? Like nobody should get that classification. Right.
Yeah.
You should have to earn your reputation by doing stuff that matters to
much
people.
Less describe yourself openly as the elite.
Wait,
a lot of them I hear that a lot of them get their position by their trading performance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hear a lot of shit, and that's the point of this show is that we hear a lot of shit, and until recently, it's been near impossible to cut through the bullshit without having to trust somebody. And so, if blockchain can make it more difficult to lie or more easier to validate independently, so that you can have a good reason to trust somebody. Maybe you don't have time to do all of this research because you got a day job and a family to take care of, right? Yeah. You can at least be able to validate someone's reputation and defer to them more, with more confidence.
I mean, imagine if you didn't have to have fact checkers, which are all paid parties. Imagine if you could
reporters. Like, why do we have to have any second layer of checking if we're supposed to be checking people who were supposed to?
Because you don't have the ability to prove truth, and which is what the blockchain is here magically, and yet they don't want to use it for that very reason.
Right, exactly. Investigative reporting
the fact that they exist is very offensive
in the blockchain.
Imagine if you're cooking and somebody comes in and goes, "Oh, you can't serve that. Let me taste it. You need to put some salt in that." It's like you're so stupid that we have to hire people to tell you whether you should believe this or not. That's just it's offensive.
It's also we were talking about this last night. That's why we all got in our. Sean, I mentioned you last night. I was like, my friend Sean taught me not to call it public school, but government schools. But we were all sent to those little indoctrination camps and told that we don't know how to manage our money and that we all should have 401ks and give our money to financial planners. And we're all too stupid, to make these decisions for ourselves.
Right.
And we've all been taught that that's the way to do things,
right.
and that you should work until you die and then become a Walmart greeter or maybe you become a Walmart greeter before you die. I don't
Right.
know. But, I mean, it's just
Zombie greeter.
Right. And Social Security is your
Upside
most
down.
important concern because that's the
Yes.
only way you'll be able to survive on your own after you
Yes.
age out of working.
Lisa,
Right.
Lisa, take a look over at Czar 15's comment.
Oh.
Look at the word he used.
By the way, it's anarchy whenever I'm the person
Yeah.
who gets to say when it's over, because I
Czar,
totally
I
get
can
interested
guarantee
and
that
I
you didn't
forget
use
to
to
say
use
that we're out
that
of
word
time.
until about 3 years ago. That you would have said, I'll say it because I don't care about getting banned. The Democrat Party
Yeah.
is full of shit.
You
And the
can't say that
Republicans
anymore.
aren't much better. There is
People
no
say
Democratic
Democratic.
Party. They changed that word right around when Trump was running.
They're changing lots
it's
of
annoying.
words, though.
And everybody got on. Everyone got on board with it. If you look back, it was a Democrat senator. Now they're Democratic senator. A democratic law. They're all Democratic. It's a process.
To me,
Every
it's like
Republican was voted in democratically. He's a Democratic Republican.
Well, there's a lot of
it's an
there's
interesting
like
subject,
dialect
right?
there
Like, it's
too,
sort
and
of
where
like
you're
a-
from and
No,
stuff.
man.
Well,
No,
yeah.
not at
niche
all. It
research
started
thing.
about
We talk
3.5
about
to
the full
4 years
empire's
ago.
myth.
And it was just like when that that meme where all the media is saying the same thing. I saw it happen, and I've been screaming about it for years now.
And maybe you did. I don't know. I guess I care less about that just
Austin,
because I'm not
the
such of
other
a
day.
sports fan, and I feel like a lot of it's sports ball politics kind of stuff,
Yeah,
and flag waving to
Yeah,
root for
red shirt, blue
the
shirt.
team
Right.
kind of
You know,
deal.
when sports
They don't
ball
want you
was
to
a
acknowledge the game.
derogatory comment. That was a put down, dude. Oh,
I
he
know.
likes sports
I know.
ball. Now it's the actual
Pick
term.
on Sean. Pick on Sean Day.
You know something interesting about that, Sean, that was like Austin was telling me this story the other day, and in the story, he was arguing with this guy about whether or not there were lockdowns in the United States. And
What?
this guy was trying to get people to say, that it wasn't clear from any history at all that there were ever lockdowns here. And, Austin got his comments stripped off Reddit because he had the temerity to say, come on, man, stop fucking gaslighting us. We were all there. You can't tell us in an internet forum that the thing that we all experienced was not a thing. Right?
And that's like what you said earlier too about a lot of people not understanding things that seem obvious, seem super obvious, but like a lot of people don't know that there is another building next to the Twin Towers that also went down, like you said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seems like something like it is very. It's
Maybe a lot of
open
people do know
information.
that.
It's
We
public
just think
information.
It wasn't next to it.
But
It
there's.
was right there. It was very far.
I mean, it was. I'm talking about building
It was in
7.
New York City. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the sun used to be yellow and now it's white.
Yeah. But there's a lot of with the meaning of words changing. This is like Ministry of Truth shit. Like I was talking about with things we were warned about, where you rewrite what the book says, kind of deal.
Right. And we're not in a recession.
Easier and easier as we get more and more digital, because in 1984 you had to collect books physically and burn them, and then reissue a new edition, the updated edition, to tell people here's how it was all along, that kind of thing.
Right.
And you don't have to do that anymore. And without things like blockchain, it's extremely dangerous to have all of these digital forms of information without some sort of independent validation.
We're always going to have, to a certain degree, memory holes, but we should at least be able to get consistent, unerasable records of when it's used.
Right.
So I think that was a good time to close out. I've forced everybody to sit here with me for long enough, and I'll do my actual job and let us leave. Sorry for keeping you all captive, guys. I just have so much fun here, and it's been a week. So, in any case, this is a new game we're going to play. Instead of What's Up This Week with You, we're going to play Parting Shots. Dave.
Parting shots. Well, just what I was saying a minute ago. We're living in a very dangerous world because we're just letting things. I don't even know how to explain it, but to say that there are absolutely things that we were warned about that are happening today, and we're deciding not to do anything about it. And I hope that more people ask themselves, why are we deciding not to do anything about it? Is it because it's not important? Is it because you're afraid, right? Is there fear behind it? Is there inconvenience driving complacency, right? What are the reasons? Because the fact is that shit's going south, right? And either we don't think it's going to get so bad, so we're not really afraid of going south, or whatever other term you want to use, right? Or maybe it's not going to happen to us because we're way over here on this side of the Atlantic, or whatever it is. Things are changing dramatically and quickly, and not necessarily for the betterment of your children or whoever you care about, right? And I would like a little more participation in the human race.
Oh yeah,
there's my parting shot.
That's a good one. Satoshi Sean, your parting shot, sir.
Well, I think we're talking about history and recording it.
Oh, by the way, we're doing a minute 30 for this. I'm watching the clock.
We're doing what?
Minute 30.
Okay. It's to 30. I was like, oh man. I think that when it comes to teaching history, and it really is important for it to be recorded, but all of it should be recorded and all of it should be taught, because you can really do so much damage by only showing a certain part and not humanizing history, not just making it, when you talk about recording it, just making it facts versus making it real. Like what we saw, years ago when everybody was tearing down all of these monuments, and I remember seeing people tear down statues of General Lee, and just thinking that, he was anti-slavery. He said so many things that if these people were taught just some of the public things that he said about slavery, that he would gladly give up, all slavery. But he was a Southern man, he said. So he would stand and he would fight this war, but he didn't believe in why, but he was just a soldier and he was going to do it. And Grant, complete opposite. He didn't give a crap. He would have been more pro-slavery than Lee. And when you humanize that and you can see that, you become a bigger part of history. It's nuanced, and there's so much that people just ignore about history, and it needs to all be recorded and then all be presented so that people can truly absorb it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
If right now, I love America. I'm super patriotic.
You're making my minute rule look silly.
I hate a government, but the idea of America, I think, was almost perfect. And if Texas was to secede, I would kill my own family from New Jersey if they came to fight here, because I'm a Texan. That's the truth. And however it ended, history would usually be written, whichever way. But that's what happened with our own Civil War, and I just think that's something we really didn't go over. That recording it is really, really, really important because of how people can present it, and if it all needs to be there, it all needs to be immutable so that people can absorb the whole thing.
Absolutely, great parting shot, Sean. Thank you, Lisa, and then Joe.
Well, I think I'm going to piggyback on Sean highlighting the humanity part of it. And I'm also going to focus on veterans. And we had a suicide in our family. And so I really want to just reach out to anybody watching this. If you're having any thoughts of suicide, the world is a better place because you're in it. And there is somebody in this world that wants you here. So if you need help, reach out to any one of us on this show. And there is help, and please ask for help. So that's my parting shot.
It's a very good parting shot, Lisa. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Joe, what's yours?
Yes. So yeah, speaking of history, I was a history major in college, right? And at first I wasn't that interested. I would say I was taking it because I was taking it. It was interesting, but it wasn't like, a passion. And I had a professor that would actually give these speeches as they were given. And it blew my mind, the difference in, reading something versus, holy shit, I get it. That's what those words meant. That's why they were said that way. And it totally made me passionate about it. Which led to a lot of, what I'm interested in now, where, trying to improve the recording of that history, because it is so typically so corrupted. And it's, it's dangerous if we want to remain a free people or want to become freer than we might be right now. So it's important. And hopefully, we've built tools to do that. And in the meantime, ongoing history, those very tools are under attack. That you should go check out the SEC complaint.
There's that
and
social media regulatory body again.
Our entire letter in response to their initial, they informed us that they were going to recommend that they sue us, or I don't know what the legal term would be, press charge or whatever it is, and that so we wrote a letter, hopefully outlining the vision, outlining the reality of the model and the technology and the innovations, and arguing against at a high level what we knew to be their case. So now we have what they're actually claiming, and I haven't. We don't have a full absolute strategy put together for exactly how everything works from this point on. We know the base level because we already knew that was probably coming. But now that we have the details, we're still reviewing it. And I don't know what we'll make public, what we won't. But, what I would love is to just put all of our arguments on chain and, throw them out there and let people help us build more arguments or put in more info. As kind of a hyper discovery mode, but I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I don't know, following upon what's happening in the Ripple case and the library case, they've been supportive, and we hope that they can help us in, new novel ways as well. But it's important. It's important that Ripple wins. Absolutely. It's important that library wins, and it's important that Dragon Chain wins, and it's important that this doesn't happen anymore. So, frankly, we're going to need at least these wins to keep it from happening to all the rest of the projects, unless you only want, cartoon NFTs and, a store of value to claim for your progeny, for your kids in the future. Here's the liberty I'm giving you. You can sell any fucking cartoon character you want and have it as your avatar on Twitter.
That's as long as you provide your government ID first.
God bless America. So that's it. That's my parting shot.
That was a great one. And I know that everybody is probably on to me by now, but I've been referencing it all day. It is fucking weird. I've actually got 3 quick things. That's all. Just like no big deal. 3 things. First off is, what the fuck? Is this a social media regulatory group? It seems like the only time you hear about the SEC, they're either pissed off about something Elon Musk said or did on Twitter, they're pissed off about Elon Musk trying to buy Twitter, or they're pissed off about an uncensored video platform that's decentralized, or they're pissed off about a place where you can go and say what you believe. And if you're in a community that wants to talk about it, you can talk about it without being interrupted by a government censor. You can be anonymous for real in this place. And if you asked a question today, you're on it. You are on it. And they're about to take that shit away from you if they can. And they're not doing it because they're worried that you got ripped off in an investment scheme. They're supposed to be doing that. And that's what they're claiming somehow that they're trying to do. I hope this gets admitted to evidence. And I hope that the jury is permanently tainted. Look up jury nullification, motherfuckers, because this is bullshit. It's not a social media regulatory agency. I'm not affiliated with Dragon Chain, and so I can fucking say this. Fuck those guys. Point number 2. Go out and learn something today about rhetoric, because I found this really cool hacker who I didn't know existed, who focused on retro engineering code, and I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. And he has a really old volume translated from Latin of the art of rhetoric, and it's really brilliant, and I've just been loving the shit out of that. I'll try to get it into the show notes before we're out. It's awesome. Go check it out. And this guy's history is fantastic, which leads me to my 3rd point. The more that you learn about history, the more you need to realize every fucking thing, person, aspect of the world, right down to the most mundane thing you can imagine. Like the stupid screw that they made on wherever they made it to fasten this together that I can't even see because it's inside another thing that has a history. There's a history of molded parts. There's a history of human beings. There's a history of censorship. There's a history of all of it. And each person you meet has both a history that comes from their cultural background and a history of their own personal life. Like, learn a little bit more about history every day, and you will never want for things to learn, because there is so much more of it than you can ever know. And I would beg us to be responsible with blockchain history, because knowing history is only half the battle, right? It's a tool just like blockchain. You got to use it responsibly, and that means understanding what you're for, understanding the philosophy of your ethics, having first principles, and then interpreting history from there. If you can't do that, then you're not responsible enough to have unlimited, perfect, unimpeachable, immutable history. And you need to live up to that, because the human race is going to depend on it. That's my parting shot.
Thanks, Greg.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
You know,
Right
if
on.
I can do something weird we never do, but because of all this, and especially because of what Greg just said, I'd like to tell everyone a story. It's just my favorite teacher was a coach, and Lisa knows I took the dumbest classes throughout school because I was the athlete in Texas, so we were forced to take all the remedial classes. So most of my teachers were coaches, and my favorite teacher, not my favorite coach, but my favorite teacher, it was history, and this is a long time ago, way back in the 1900s. I was probably like 88, 89. And the reason why I can see so clearly how history repeats itself and the importance of learning from it is this is during a election. And it was a really bad election. And everyone was talking about how the muckraking and all the insults. And it was all just such a spectacle. It never happened before in the history of the United States. And I could, you could see in every election now. Everyone says the same thing, and how important this was. This is the history of this is the republic's on the line. So my teacher took me aside. We're having a mock election, where one side of the class had to, represent whoever was running for president, and then the other side of the class had to, whether you believed in what they were standing for or not, and they were diametrically opposed back then. He took me aside. He said, "Hey, man, Sean, I know that you could do something here." And this is before the term influencer or anything was ever invented. He said, "I want you to be a third party to come in, and you don't have to follow the rules that other people do. You can say what you want to say, but here's the thing. You're not allowed to ever stand for anything. You can never take a side. You can never." And he said, "You just have to BS these people. You have to scam them, and you have to make them vote for you." So I was like, "Sure, coach, I got it." And we would have debates, or I made up these little cards like "Vote for Sean," but I put a piece of candy taped to everyone. And they're like, "Hey, can we do that?" And he's like, "No, you can't give gifts out." And it's like, "But Sean did it." "Well, he did it. Now we know we can't do it." So,
Boom.
And then we had the debate, and the debate was tough because people were like, "I'm for the death penalty, period." And then so the person's like, "I'm against the death penalty. It's wrong, but only if you kill a police officer, blah, blah, blah." And then I'm like, you are killing someone. This is terrible, blah, blah. "What do you mean if you kill a police officer?" "Oh, a cop is more important than me. Every American is the same. For you to say that they should only get the death penalty to kill a police officer is just, it's demeaning to everyone else, blah, blah, blah." So that's the whole thing. And I won by like 95%. So people that were like on these people's teams voted for me. And then this is bad, because then I had to go up, and then he told everybody to let him in on the experiment. They're like, "What does Sean stand for?" And it was like, he was for the death penalty. "No, he wasn't." And it's like, "Yeah, he was, because he said about the cop." It's like, well, and then he told me, he said, "You're all morons. All of you voted for someone who stood for nothing, who just told you what you wanted to hear. Right. You just elected a president of your country who stood for nothing and just gave you a bunch of crap."
Yep.
And everybody was so pissed at me
for winning the vote.
But he called them out. He's like, "You're all morons. You are the moronic people that are going to run the country when I'm old."
Yep.
And that hit me so hard, man. At every election, I look around and you can see it. You can see, what when it comes to like news outlets and who's creating the rules of who you can give candy to and who you can't. And, you know, the old systems we have in place of, oh, well, you were on Saturday Night Live, so now you have to let everybody on Saturday Night Live that's running, and, you know, that fair and balanced thing. We've lost that now. So we really do need to learn from history as much as we can, because we're losing a lot of the safeguards that have been in place for a long time, and it's been bad. It's been crap. And now we're losing those safeguards. It's going to get really scary.
Sean, that is a powerful point to close on, I think, because, you know, an individual tool is what history is. You can't ask for a vote to understand how to use it. You have to know for you. And that's a really fucking powerful point, but it's also a lot of responsibility. So add that, click the alarm bell, click the alarm bell again to check that it's working, and then click it again, hit refresh, and share the shit out of this thing. Yeah. Because the more you do that, the more you reward yourselves, the more you reward us, and the more that we get people to pay attention to the history that's around them. So peace out, guys.
See you on Den Social.
Take care.
All right.